Hey everybody, how are you? This is the Dr. William Clark podcast. Glad to be with you guys for another episode, and glad that we have this time to hang out together and to always grow together. I do value our time when we are able to make that happen through this podcast, and super thankful for another day, another moment to be here and to share this with you. I wanted to jump on and talk about this topic of processing through changes within your organization. And a lot of times, particularly earlier in our podcast, we would cover topics that are pretty organizational heavy, leadership heavy. And the question would be, well, how is all this relevant to fundraising, and how do you kind of thread the needle there, make that connection? And here's what I'll tell you, that green book you see over here, right here, literally right here, it's sustainable. And here's the image of it right here. How developing a sustainable faith-based and nonprofit organization. This is my doctoral thesis. Within this book, I talk about the concepts of sustainability and what needs to happen organizationally to position your organization to consistently generate the type of revenue that can make a significant difference in the long-term health of your organization and its ability to meet the needs of its customers and stakeholders. And culturally, I address a lot of topics culturally in that book. In that book, you won't read anything about fundraising tactics and strategies and how to write grants and proposals. If you want to read any of that stuff, you need to get this book, Grant Writing 101. Again, even with this book, it's all about culture. It's all about how you do things within your organization. But at the end of the day, processing through changes and shifts and organizational differences that are really calling and causing members of the organization and its key stakeholders to do something different requires quite a bit from you. And I want to address this because some of you may be going through this or preparing for it, or maybe this is preemptive. But this is also essential to your ability to generate revenue, raise money, become sustainable, meet the need of your organization, etc. And so if you're not successfully processing through changes, it can delay your ability to meet your other goals, particularly those that are financially related, that ultimately have deep impact on your ability to serve your customers and do the amazing work that you're called to do. So I do want to go over that. If at any point you just need to say, you know what, Doc, you hit me where I need to be hit, and you're making all the right points that connect with our story, and you are connecting with us in a way that we believe is important and essential with to and for our journey, go ahead over to drwilliampclark.com and schedule a consultation to talk about it. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about what's going on with your organization, and I'll be happy to talk with you about that and explore with you where you are. Again, that's drwilliampclark.com. All right, so a couple of thoughts here. When you're processing through change, it's important to kind of look at a number of things, and I want to go over them here with you. First thing I want to do is what my first thing I want to highlight rather is what specifically changed about your organization. What has specifically changed about your organization? And this is an important question to ask, because the change that you identify or the change that you articulate really is speaking to what is no longer the same within your organization, right? So your ability to kind of look at the fact that your organization is no longer functioning as it used to, or is not functioning the way it was, or is not functioning the way it was planned to function in the past. It changes everything. It changes absolutely everything. And if you're unable to identify what's changed or what's different within your organization, then you cannot identify credibly what's next, or how do you navigate what's next within your organization. The change question is a deep question that is focusing on what isn't happening the way things used to be. What isn't happening the way things used to do, or how they used to unfold within the organization? That is a very important question, because if expectations have changed, if responsibilities have changed, if roles have changed, if you have changed, if your customers have changed, then this is a very important thing to highlight, because when you identify the change that has happened, then you can go ahead and go through the process of saying, okay, well, we need to function differently. but we need to behave differently. We need to operate differently. This is an important question. In many cases, when I'm working with my clients, this question becomes part of the truth serum that needs to be put on a table and talked about, not specifically for embarrassing anybody or calling out anybody or identifying failures of folks or really putting people in a tough position, because that's not going to help anybody either. But it's about identifying the moments or the moment that has shifted everything about the organization to where it is now. All right. We need to know how we got here. And so we got to identify what's changed. The next question you want to think about is, well, if you already identified what's changed, what are you looking for in the next iteration? Right? Because currently your organization may be in a not so good place or in a rut or in a performance deficit that is not necessarily reflective of what you desire. And as a consequence, you're not happy with it. So therefore you call Eli Patrick and co, you call me, and you want to talk about, well, how do we do things different? How do we get to a different outcome? So as we talk about how to get to a different outcome, we do have to ask this particular question. What are you looking for next in the next iteration, next phase of your organization, next phase of your leadership? What is it that you envision? And quite frankly, as we walk through that question and explore that question, we'll explore whether or not your expectations are appropriate. Are they misplaced, misguided, or they're not necessarily in alignment with what's relevant for your organization and where you're going? At the end of the day, it's going to be important for you to kind of go through that thought process and be honest with yourself about, well, we are no longer where we were. We've changed in these particular areas, and we are envisioning kind of a different outcome, a different result because of fill in the blank. So if you bring us on, my team and I will ask those critical questions that may be difficult to bring up, difficult to ask, difficult to answer. Will help facilitate that conversation. Let me just tell you this. As we're walking through these key points here, let me just point out here. As you engage as an honest broker in all of this, as you engage as a person who is contributing to the success of the organization long term, this is not a short term investment you're making. You're a long term investor. So as you're investing long term in the long term success of your organization, you then have to be honest with yourself and others about what's happening. Could it be painful? Yeah. Could it be scary? Yeah. Will it take some courage? Yeah. Sometimes you need an intermediary to help flesh those things out or to articulate things that are really tough to say. But somehow, some way, we need to communicate what's changed and what are we looking to do next. Here's a question that I do think that a lot of folks don't wrestle with enough, but I want to challenge you to do this. And that's a question of, what have you learned since the last time you've had success? What have you learned since the last time you've had success? What have you learned about yourself and your organization, your team, your customers? What have you learned about the community? What have you learned about your stakeholders since the last time you've had success? Because success can be, quite frankly, a misnomer. It can be a lie, if you will. It can be something that necessarily does not speak to reality for the organization, because success sometimes can be achieved by accident. It can be achieved by just tripping into it. It can be achieved by intentionality. But some of us aren't aware of that in the middle of the success run. So here's a critical question to think about. Since the last time you had success, what did you learn? What did you learn? What's different? What's new? What hasn't worked since then, or what is working? Or how can you process through these situations? How do you process differently through all the nuances of competing in the marketplace now that you have a different situation going on? What have you learned since the last time you had success? Have your customers changed? Have your competitors changed? Has the needs in the marketplace changed? Has your capacity to deliver changed? Has your services changed? Has the leadership team changed? Has the culture shifted within your organization, within your team, within your product line, your product services? These are really, really important questions to process through, because you're thinking through an active way how to process through change within your organization. Some of you, you're processing through this change from the context of raising new money, developing new business lines, providing new services, taking on new customers, expanding services to your customers, shifting services to your customers, etc. And you're not sure how you're able to navigate through all of that. So one way to start, one way to begin with all this is to talk about what have you learned since the last time you've been successful. So as we are continuing to process through the change of organization, we've talked about identifying what's changed. We talked about what are you looking for in the future in the next iteration of your organization. We talked about what have you learned since the last time you had success. And then lastly, what are your goals? What are your goals for your organization? So your vision is one thing, but what are your goals? What are your desires for your organization? What do you hope for your organization? What is it that you anticipate happening for your organization because of this new process you're going through, this thinking process, this thinking exercise? What is it that you hope to achieve and to secure and to acquire and to see happening as a result of going through this process of shifting and changing and navigating through the journey of your organization? If you don't have goals and desires for your organization, then who will? If you do not have goals and desires for your organization, then who will? As the leader of the house, as the leader of the business, as the leader of the organization, you have to have these established goals and desires for the organization. Because here's the thing, as a leader, your team, they're looking to you for guidance and direction, and they're looking for you to curate the culture that you're going to pursue and to institute. They're going to look to you for establishing the boundaries and the infrastructure towards success. They're looking to you to be the consistent driver of our processes and our systems to get from point A to point B. So to do that, you have to have your eye on the prize and articulate, here are our goals and here are our desires. Do you, as team members, buy in? You're processing through change of the organization. You have to have something for people to buy into. What is it that they're buying into? What goals, what desires are they buying into? And what leads to them remaining on board, on the bus, in the ship, etc., to ride this bad boy through, to be consistent and persistent throughout this entire journey. Your organization is looking to you, my friend, to, in some cases, lead through this change process, to facilitate it, or to bring on resources to help reflect and represent your goals towards navigating through the change process. Here's a question for you that you got to think through and process. Are you willing to take on that role? And is this something that you feel that you can sustain over an extended period of time? I often say that your team, your organization, your customers, your community, they're looking to you for success. They're looking to you for guidance, looking to you for direction. Are you willing to play that role and to be that person, that individual that will facilitate success long term? Now, if you want to talk through this, talk through your leadership challenges and how processing through change has been difficult for your organization in recent years, I want to invite you to join me and visit drwilliampclark.com to schedule a free consultation. Let's talk about it. I want to get you connected to my team who can help coach you through your challenges. Perhaps you're navigating through these challenges and it's standing in the way of your ability to raise money, to have the impact you're looking to have within your community and your organization. Come to the website, schedule a consultation. Let's talk about it, because we are in your corner. We want to see you have success, and we want to see you be successful for the long term, not just for the short term, but for the long term. And we believe that as you work through these issues and challenges, you'll start to see slowly but surely changes and shifts. In some cases, for some of you, it'll be an immediate shift that will cause ripple effects within the work, the organization, the community, the stakeholder group, in the industry, and people will notice. They will notice the work that you're putting in to process through the change your organization is going through, because you care about the long-term success of the organization. Folks, I'm going to leave it right there. Again, visit us at drwilliampclark.com and we'll be glad to speak with you. to talk about whatever is on your heart and mind, particularly as it relates to navigating through change and raising resources for your organization and your business. This is Dr. William Clark, and we'll catch you guys next time. See you, everybody.